I read an entire bookshelf's worth of books this month, and let's talk about them before I drop them all on my head. Hi everybody! August was an amazing reading month for me. I read a grand total of 12 books this month, which far exceeds my previous month's worth. So I'm just going to speed through them, otherwise this video is going to last forever. So the first book I read this month was Sabriel by Garth Nix. I started this in July, finished it at the start of this month, and honestly wasn't totally blown away by it. Kept waiting for something big to happen and it didn't really, so honestly don't know whether I'm actually going to continue with this series, which is a shame because so many people rave about this series and I was just really disappointed with it and ended up only giving it 3.5 stars. The next 6 books I read as part of Booktubeathon, which I've already done a wrap up for, so I'm just going to whiz through them. I read Entangled by Kat Clark, which I gave 3 stars. The Senator's Daughter by Melinda Salisbury, which I gave 4 stars. My Second Life by Faye Bird, which I gave 2.5 stars. The Bone Dragon by Alexia Casale, which I gave 3.5 stars. Blood and Feathers by Lou Morgan, which I gave 4.5 stars. And finally, I read Saga Volume 1 by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples, which I gave 2.5 stars. Next up, the final book, which was on my Booktubeathon TBR, which I didn't manage to finish in that week, was The City's Sun, the first book in the Skyscraper Florence series by Tom Pollock. I kind of didn't really know what to think about this book. It was well written and it was an interesting idea, and it kind of touched on this whole sort of old London versus modern new skyscraper London, and it was a really interesting idea and I was fascinated to read a book about that, but overall I was just not really blown away by it and I gave it 3 stars. Next up, I read Am I Normal Yet by Holly Bourne. I absolutely loved this book. I gave it 5 stars because it was absolutely amazing. The characters were just so dynamic and interesting and she'd written it in a really sensitive way. It's about this young girl who is a teenager and she's trying to balance her personal life with her school life and it's just getting all crazy, but on top of that she also suffers from OCD and she has to balance that on top of everything else that is going on. And Holly Bourne wrote it in a really amazing way. It was very sensitive and I really enjoyed this book. It's the first book in the normal series and I cannot wait to read the next 2 books in that series because this whole series is amazing because it talks about feminism and just girls being awesome and female friendships and just general yayness. I absolutely loved this book and as I say, I gave it 5 stars. Next up was Bout of Books 14. I kind of didn't do amazingly well for this readathon because I was suffering from neck a lot that week, so I actually only read 2.5 books. The first book I read was Rockaholic by CJ Skews. I really actually quite enjoyed this book. It's about this teenager who accidentally manages to kidnap a rock star and she keeps him in her garden shed. It's hilarious. It's kind of ridiculously hilarious. It's one of those books where you're sat there cringing because she's doing stuff and you're like, why are you doing that? Oh my god. But it was absolutely hilarious and the characters are really interesting. I really liked the relationship between her and her best friend. It was a really fascinating relationship. It was just written in a really amusing way and I felt really nostalgic reading it because I know had I been a teenager and that ridiculous situation happened to me, I would have probably done a lot of similar things. So it was a real nostalgia kick for me and I gave it 3 stars. Next up, I read The Dead House by Dawn Kurtagich. I gave this 5 stars. It was absolutely amazing and I did a review video of this which you can watch here. It was a mind-blowingly good book and I cannot recommend it enough, so if you want more information on that, go watch the video. It was amazing. Absolutely loved it. Best book I've read this year. And the final book I read this month was Hello, Goodbye and Everything in Between by Jennifer E. Smith. This is out on the 1st of September, but honestly I wasn't particularly blown away by it. It's about a couple, a high school couple who it's the night before they go away to college and it's the whole should they stay together or should they split up sort of thing. It's an interesting idea and I was really fascinated by it, but honestly, yeah, just couldn't get into it, felt really detached from the story and from the characters, kept waiting for it really to get going, and to a certain extent the final sort of third was Definitely better than the previous 2/3, but I wasn't really totally blown away by it, and I only gave it 2.5 stars. So those were all the books I read this month. It was pretty awesome. I had a pretty eclectic reading experience this month. It was great fun. Cannot wait for September. It's my birthday month as well, so expect lots of awesome books at the end of the month. And also there's loads of really good books out this month. I'm so excited. That is it for me today. I will see you again soon, but until then, bye!